All my people's in the place to be. It is Richard Burns at the place where we shouldn't be chewing gum, because I remember last time. Let's get rid of this gum. Yeah, we ain't gonna be chewing gum in your ear today at the Solomon Project, where it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep that counts. We're starting off our day. Yeah, our day. Even though it's evening out, we're starting off our work day. We got a full 11 hours of drive time. I had about 3 hours remaining on my clock, and it was about 2:30 in the afternoon. And I chose to pull off and do my 10 hours before my first 11 hours were done. And I did that deliberately because I'm on I-95. I'm currently in Delaware. I'm on I-95. And I'm going to have to cross through Baltimore and then DC, which is an absolute nightmare to cross during the day, because a big chunk of your hours are going to be used up in traffic. So in the Northeast, you could probably do 570 miles in 10 hours. That's with no traffic. But when there's traffic, by the way, it calculates at 57 miles per hour on average in a 10-hour stretch. This is just to illustrate just how damaging traffic could be to your hours of service. Okay? So in the Northeast, legally, in 10 hours, you can do 570 miles. I know there are people that are going to say, well, I could do 600 whatever in 10 hours. Listen, if you're driving in the Northeast, here's a word of caution. If you average more than 57 miles per hour in the Northeast, you can be issued a speeding ticket. Okay? And it will hold up in court. Okay? Just a little something to put in your memory. Well, you got 10 hours. You're in the Northeast. Maximum amount of miles that you could do legally, 570 miles in 10 hours. Now, when there's traffic, when you got to go through New York, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., the most you'll do in those same 10 hours is about 280 miles. Those same 10 hours, you will cover less distance during the day than you will at night, because during the day, you got that traffic going. Crucial. Keep that in mind. All right? There are some drivers that claim to do whatever amount of miles in an 11-hour drive day. But you gotta wonder, number one, how much does their load weigh? Number two, are they going over mountainous regions? Number three, are they going through areas of high volume traffic? Your major cities, Chicago, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Detroit, Miami, Atlanta, so on and so forth, LA, so on and so forth. Are you going through a major city when you make that claim, when people make that claim? Okay? Very important, because some people come on and brag about these things and give new drivers the wrong impression. And then when the new driver feels like they're underperforming, is because these people aren't specifying where they're driving and how much they weigh. Things like that. Important things like that. The same important things that you're going to need to know when you decide to go on your own, become an owner-operator, look for your own loads, or have your own authority and look for your own loads. These are important details you need to keep in mind when you're going to book a load. If you plan on booking a load for a certain distance, you need to know where in the country you are and whether or not you'll be able to accomplish covering that distance in the amount of time that the shipper or the broker is expecting you to do that. You got to calculate. It's not the same doing 600 miles, having to go across West Virginia with a 40,000 pound load as opposed to a 15,000 pound load. It is not the same. You're not going to cover the same amount of ground. You're going to cover more ground going through something like West Virginia or the Rockies or something like that. You're going to cover more ground with 15,000 pounds than you are if you got 40,000 pounds. Things that you have to be cognizant of when you select a load the day you decide to become an owner-operator, where you get to book your own loads. So you have to take all that into consideration. Of course, you got to look at your hours of service. Make sure you have enough time, even enough time to get loaded. So I picked up at a facility in New Jersey, and they clearly stated that if you don't have enough hours, they will not load you. And you can't hang out at the facility. You got to go. You cannot hang out. You can't do your 10 hours at the facility. They got a limited amount of space, so they can't play that game. Look at this guy flying. Okay, 55 mile per hour. This guy's doing about 65 in a 55. What does that mean? When you're going over the speed limit, what does that mean? Should anything happen, the insurance companies for both the trucking company and if you impacted somebody else, their insurance company, they're going to be plugging into your computer. And the computer is going to have the exact date and time. And they're going to see that you're going over the speed limit. And you're a professional driver, that's an automatic L. You already lost. You already lost. You're done. You're done. By the way, welcome to Earth 2.0 or Earth 100 point something. I don't know. The world has ended so many times. I don't know what Earth we're on now. But if you can watch my video today, whatever Earth it is that I'm on, you're on that Earth too. The fear mongers had plenty of material to make content with. Plenty. There was the strike at the ports, right? That was a world-ending event. The strikes that Israel were committing against Hezbollah, knocking some generals out the frame and whatnot, that was a world-ending event. Hitting Israel striking some locations in Iran, and it turned out to be Russian. That was world-ending also. So we had a few world-ending events while I was gone. So I don't know what Earth we're on now, because the Earth ended I don't know how many times. So whatever Earth that is, and you're watching this video, we're there. That's where we are. That's where we are. I'm grateful that I can still invest. AJ's grateful. CJ's grateful that we can all still invest in Earth, whatever we're in. So stock market, the bond market, all that good stuff, real estate, all that stuff came over to the new Earth. So no big changes for us, I guess. And the world has ended so many times. I don't react. I don't go run into whatever market and stock up on anything. I've been doing for years what the professor has suggested everybody should do. You know, periodically when you go buy something, you just buy a little extra. Buy a little extra of the stuff that has a long shelf life. And you keep that little extra and keep piling it up into a little storage. That way you got a little something for you and your family to eat with until enough things correct themselves. You can choose to have a month supply, 2 month supply, a 6 month supply, a year supply. I don't go all crazy, and I don't have a 10-year supply of anything. You know, something to be able to filter water with. You know, you can use rocks, coal, and some other stuff to create a filter. You can learn how to do that. You can always go on YouTube and learn how to create filters to purify water with, how to start a fire, how to make a tent, how to use dried leaves to keep you warm, you know, stuff like that. You can learn all that stuff. It's on YouTube. You don't. You know how to plant, all that good stuff. You got all that good stuff. Now, the strike at the shipping ports, that was a non-event as far as I'm concerned. It was a non-event because it wasn't taking anybody by surprise. At least when I say anybody, I'm talking about everyone who profits and depends on shipping. It didn't take any one of those people off guard. Nobody. Everybody in the shipping industry, everybody that depends on the shipping industry, whether it be businesses like Walmart or Amazon or whatever, they knew long in advance, way in advance, about the potential of a strike happening, because they knew well in advance that a negotiation was coming up, because the longshoremen, they have a 6-year union contract, so it wasn't a mystery to anybody. They knew as they were getting closer to the end of that contract, they knew that negotiations were going to start. They already know how negotiations are. Most Americans don't know how negotiations are done. And when people heard that they wanted this 77% increase in pay, they're only thinking about that one jump, but it's not 77 in one jump. It's 77 throughout 6 years, throughout the next 6 years of their contract, which is just under 13% a year. Yeah, I know. Everybody wishes they can get a 13% increase in pay per year from their job. Well, become a longshoreman then. If you want that, you could always become a longshoreman. You could always apply. Get your little close to 13% increase in pay per year. Nobody's holding you back from filling out an application. Whether you'll get selected or not, I don't know. But you can always fill it out if you're so concerned about that. But it's really a non-event. And the union's main concern is the automation. Now, here is a concern for me when I heard that after 2 or 3 days, the strike was over, and that the ports were willing to give the longshoremen, ports and the big shipping companies were willing to give the longshoremen that increase in pay. That set off warning bells for me, because that increase in pay, if you're agreeing to increase in pay, for me, that's a sign that they're not going to have to fulfill that increase in pay. Maybe the first couple of years, but automation is probably going to take effect. So they're not going to need that many longshoremen. So the ones that are left and they get that increase in pay, it's not going to impact the major shipping companies and the ports. So what is it that they have? Like 84,000 employees, 13% per year. It may not be for 84,000 employees. That 13% might only be for 20,000, because everybody else is going to get kicked to the curb thanks to automation. So the fact that the shippers and the ports agreed to that, I'm thinking they did some math. And that math is saying that increase is not going to impact us, because we're not going to be paying that many people that increase. Just a thought. I'm not saying I know for sure. Just a thought. Now, keep in mind, automation is critical. Very, very critical. Don't sleep on that automation. A nation needs people. so far, up until now. I say up until now. Well, a nation needs human beings for production and for defense. When there's a population decline, the economy declines right along with it. Right now, China's experiencing a devastating population decline. And guess what? Their economy is declining right along with it. South Korea, Japan, same thing. None of these countries allow for immigration. We're making a big deal about immigration, but immigration is what's keeping our population at a level where we can maintain our economy. If we start to experience a decline in our population because people aren't having babies and we're not allowing immigrants in, we're going to suffer the same thing that Japan, South Korea, China, now Russia is experiencing. And Russia's situation is so bad, their currency, nobody wants their currency throughout the world. Nobody wants their currency. In fact, Russia is doing something as a nation that hasn't been done in 5,000 years. They are now, they have an arrangement with Pakistan and I think 2 or 3 other countries, where they're now bartering. Bartering ended 5,000 years ago. I think with the Mesopotamians, I forget which ones. But it ended 5,000 years because they started using coins, currency, instead of bartering. And now Russia is bartering. They're exchanging potatoes with the Pakistanis for, I don't know, oranges or something like that. And they're doing it with other countries because their currency is junk. They got junk for currency. Nobody wants to exchange for Russian rubles. Or if they still do, it's very few countries. Their currency has been going down and there's no end in sight. And keep in mind, Russia is one of the BRIC nations. Does that sound familiar? BRIC? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those are the countries that want to create a currency so that they don't have to depend on the US dollar anymore. But the US dollar is something like 87% or 89% used throughout the world to settle debt and purchase commodities. 87 or 89% of those transactions are done with US dollars. So these BRIC nations, I don't know. It was supposed to have happened years ago, back in Earth 5.0, I think. So I don't know. I guess there are people still out there pumping fear about the US dollar. Maybe. Like I said, I've been through enough world endings that I don't pay attention to that stuff anymore. Now, one very important thing that the professor is always trying to tell everybody, and ever since I stumbled upon her channel, I've heard it say it many, many times, and I'll sum it up this way with this saying: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Planning requires that you get some reliable sources of information, and you use that reliable and credible information to guide yourself, to make sure you know how to manage your finances, and also protect yourself from potential events. There are a lot of things in this life that are going to happen over and over again. If you move to Florida, you have to expect a hurricane. If you move to the Caribbean, you have to expect hurricanes and earthquakes. If you move to California, you got to be prepared for earthquakes. Everywhere you go on the globe, there's gonna be something: tsunamis, tornadoes, earthquakes, blizzards. And just because it happened once doesn't mean it's never going to happen again. It's not a one-time thing. So if you fail to plan, you're going to be in a lot of trouble when it happens again. If you forget about the event, you're going to be in a lot of trouble when it comes back. If you ignore what you went through, or if you forget what you went through, you don't prepare yourself, well, let me guess. It's Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden makes the earthquakes. Well, some lady came out and said that Hurricane Helene was created by Joe Biden. I'm serious. And she was serious too. Joe Biden created Hurricane Helene. Makes a lot of sense, right? Especially now during a presidential election. Yeah, he would definitely want his vice president to lose, right? He would want his party to lose by creating this right now. Yeah, I don't think she thought this one out too good. But that's not unusual. There's so many people that are always blaming somebody else for something. You know, growing up in the hood, I was surrounded by people who were addicted to all kinds of substances. And it was always the same excuse, always the same. They were always blaming somebody else for their addiction. Always. As if the very people or organizations that they're blaming come to their house or came to their house the first time they use it and just stuck it up their nose or stuck it in their vein. Always somebody else's fault. Never taking accountability for their decisions. The professor touched on that too. Never fails. It's always somebody else. It's never them. They're standing in front of more than one option. And if they pick the option that hurts them the most, it was somebody else's fault. But when they pick the one that they profit from the most, I did it on my own. They're really proud at that moment. I did it on my own. Nobody helped me. But when it hurts them, oh, it's somebody else. Somebody else did that. I didn't do that. Not me. Yeah, the professor touched on that too. There are peoples out here that do that all the time. It's all good though. So welcome everybody. Welcome to Earth. I don't know what Earth this is now. It ended so many times. I don't even know what number we're up to. Welcome anyways. What do I think is going to happen in the next... Well, like I said, I'm waiting for the elections. Once the elections are done and the winner is announced, me personally, I got a decision to make. I got a decision to make. So stay fresh, y'all. Keep it profitable. See what's going on. I'm trying to track Kitty down because Kitty don't be listening sometimes. Kitty just be doing whatever the hell Kitty wants to do. Well, Kitty, get over here. Kitty, stop playing, man. Get over here. Come pick these people up. They want to bounce with you. Kitty.
Arabam Dacia, seviyorum çift kalem aça. Göremedi kimseden fayda. İşler